Hey, yo, it's me, Pops Fan Marmalade, and you're watching the Comics-Related Madness Network. Uh-huh. So come get some. CromCon. CromCon.
Madness Entertainment Group presents the Madness Comic Network with original programming and additional comic-related content.
Hey, we want to shout out to our sponsors, Daytona Beach Comic Con. If you are a fan of comic books, if you're a fan of comic book conventions, and if you like meeting comic book creators and getting comics and comic-related stuff, then you need to make your plans to attend Daytona Beach Comic Con. This year's show is September 9th and 10th. Silverline will be there, so you should make your plans to be there too. We'll see you there. If you like comics and find yourself in the Orlando, Florida area, doesn't everyone come to Orlando at some point in time to see the House of Mouse? But when you're here, you need to make it a point to visit Coliseum of Comics, especially the one on East Colonial Drive. They carry Silverline comics, even a limited edition Coliseum of Comics version of our comics. So, when you go, be sure to ask for Silverline Comics and tell them we sent you. OCD stands for Orlando Collector Deviants. OCD, Steve and Trish, they're a family of geeks who promote geek things, particularly those around the Orlando, Florida area. They're big supporters of Silverline, and we think you should be supporters of theirs too. Go give them some love. If you are an independent comic book maker and you need to get your independent comics made, you need to look no further than Kablam Digital Printing. They print our books, and they do a bang-up job. They're not only trusted by Silverline, but many, many independent comic book makers. Head on over to Kablam.com and see for yourself just how easy it is to have your comic printed by them. And tell them Silverline sent you.
Hi, this is Tim TK, host of That Silverline Show on Tuesday. Join us at 11 p.m. Eastern, 8 p.m. Pacific every Tuesday night as we discuss pop culture and the joys of making comics.
Hi, I'm Barb Kelber, co-host of Silverline's Wednesday Wham. Join us each Wednesday night as we discuss comics, literature, movies, and anything else that may catch our attention.
I'm Roland Mann, and I host Silverline's Silver Sunday. Join me every Sunday at 8 p.m. Eastern as we make mine Silverline.
Hello, good evening, Wednesday Whammers. We are live and we are talking to the wonderful Jeff Johnson, and this is Silverline, where we have the wonderful books like Sniper and Rook, Trumps, Divinity, which we'll talk about tonight a little bit maybe, Kalis, awesome dad comic, and much, much more. Twilight Grim, Cray, Wolf Hunter, Cape Town, Cat and Mouse, get them all. We read our own books. They're that fantastic. So come on by. Oh, there goes my camera. But hey. But yes, we are Silverline, and we are joined by the wonderful Jeff Johnson, who has had a varied career in the comics biz and apparently in the animation industry. And we are joined with our venerable artist, Rob Davis. Can you say hello?
I can. Hello.
Awesome. And he's been penciling a personal project. And Barb Kalberg, the Empress of Inks. And she'll be driving the show tonight. I'm just the workhorse starting everything. And of course, John Middick, 3. How do I pronounce your last name, John? Oh, you're on mute.
I like that better.
Right. It's very hard to pronounce.
So,
Yep, we can't hear you, John. We got nothing. And of course, we got wonderful Jeff Johnson, who happens to be joining us all the way from Italy. So,
Yep, I'm here in Florence.
Florence, wonderful.
I'll trade places with you. I'm in a farmhouse in Iowa.
It's pretty nice here. I'm going to stick around for a while. There's still a lot of food I have to eat.
No snow over there, eh?
No, it's pretty nice.
We're starting to get a little bit of winter weather where I'm at. I'm in Canada, so it's starting to get there. Out west, apparently they already have snow, but I'm in the east, and it's taking its time, but it's getting there.
check your mute button, John.
Yeah.
Your microphone mute button, because we're not hearing you.
Yeah, we're not hearing you, John.
Nope.
Ooh, yeah, but you do a wonderful mime. I love the miming. Yes, that's
exactly.
Great. Thank you, Martin, for the wonderful introductions. You do a better job at hosting than I do most of the time. I would like to thank our wonderful special guest for coming tonight. I have worked with Jeff in the past, and one of the most fun pencilers I have ever worked for. And
that's a nice thing to say.
Wow.
Oh, you are.
That's high praise, sir.
You are in my top 10 favorite pencilers to ever work with, and I've worked with a lot in 35 years.
Is that because I let you do so much of the work that you felt you had to?
Well, I
really
stretched my wings a lot on you because you were one of my first collaborations back in the early days of Malibu. So, and I did every issue of Solitaire on you. You were my first consistent partner. So,
yeah, you did. I mean, we made a great team. That stuff looks great still.
It does, and every time I Google your name, that pops up. Solitaire pops up.
Oh yeah, people love Solitaire.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
This is a great book.
Oh,
I think we can hear you now, John.
Can you guys hear me now?
Yes, there you go.
Yes.
Can you hear me now?
Yes.
Cool.
Success.
I'm gonna fix I'll fix my camera. There we go. Hopefully.
Okay. Well, we're going to start out by asking Jeff the very cliche and trope question: how did you get into comics?
It's a pretty cliche answer. So I read comics as a kid and basically learned how to read from comics when I was like 4 or 5, and then that's all I ever really wanted to do. At some point, I think I started drawing around the same age. And when I was in high school, my friend and I did Steve Jones, who also did an issue of Solitaire. We did a newspaper strip in our local newspaper, a thing that we wrote, penciled and ink to put out together. And that's when we first got published. We were both like 16 and 17. And then after that, I joined the Army and was an illustrator in the Army for a little while. And then when I got out, Say what?
The Army has illustrators?
They did. I don't know if they still do. I know that Photoshop has replaced most of the things that I used to do. So as an illustrator in the Army, I worked at a PSYOP unit. And so I did propaganda posters and things like that. But one of the other jobs that illustrators would do, and they needed to actually have secret clearances and sometimes crypto clearances, is because back in the day, I don't know if you remember, before computers, we used to make art by hand. And so you would, like, if you wanted to have a pie chart that showed some secret information, an illustrator had to make that pie chart and then make an overlay that someone could put on a projector and then tell the generals how many troops we've lost. That was my job. So, and also we used to make name tags and put out newsletters and do, all the things that illustrators, it's a print, basically it was a print shop associated job. Yeah. But I don't think they have them anymore. And then after that, I went to comic book conventions and got to know people and talked to artists and editors, and eventually was able to make enough connections that when Fabian Nicieza went from marketing to editing, he called me up and gave me a job on Wonder Man. And after that, everything's been sort of just one big long ride in comics.
So it's all
Wonder Man was
Fabian's
your
fault.
first
It is all Fabian's fault. I do still send him 15% of everything I do just to keep things copacetic.
I
So
remember
Wonder Man-
seeing some of your early sketches for Wonder Man, Comic Shop News or something, and I was hooked. Fan at that moment.
Oh, thanks, John. What
Martin-
sketches did you see? What was it?
I'm not sure. It might have been like a black and white cover.
Okay.
You know, sometimes they give like the preview art. But I know I saw something black and white, and then I was like, oh my god, I can't wait to see this. I can't wait till this comes out. And yeah, absolutely loved your stuff.
Oh, thank you. Well, I mean, I was
Sorry,
lucky.
sorry about fanboying there, Barb.
Oh, no, it's totally
No, I was
cool.
going to say, Martin, can you throw up the Wonder Man?
Yeah, I'm trying to get my thing to
let's see.
present, but for some reason it refuses to present. I don't know what I'm doing
Well,
wrong.
you have to
I'm
add it
gonna
to the
turn off
show.
light.
Yeah, no, but I've added it like 5 times and it won't show up. Let me try again.
I didn't know that Wonder Man was your first work.
I did some work that I did not get paid for a smaller company. I did an issue of Star Wars 3D, and I did an issue of Cull 3D for Blackthorn Comics. So you remember them back in the 90s, and I never got. I don't think I ever got paid.
I know,
But
now
then
still owes me money.
Yeah. I think all comic book artists are owed money by someone. That's just sort of the process.
I got all mine, thank God.
Oh, smart. Yeah.
I had to threaten to sue, but I got it.
Yeah, I did not. I did not go.
Yeah.
But you have to make some sacrifices to the art gods. Roland's here. Oh,
And
is
boss
that
is
Roland?
gone.
My mistake. Okay.
Was I supposed to add you, Roland, or no?
No,
I just saw him pop up, so I decided to throw him in. I'm so sorry, guys. For some reason, my screen my screen presentation is just not showing me. Usually, I get a little pop up that tells me where to show from, and it is just not showing up. So I'm going to try a couple of things. So you guys keep talking, and I do apologize.
So how did you? Go ahead.
I was gonna say, Wonder Man was sort of my first real work, and I was lucky enough to have Terry Austin inking that stuff for me. So,
Oh wow!
Yeah, I was able to make.
God. He's my hero. Yeah, I tried to ape his style a lot. He was one of my
He's phenomenal.
Yeah, he was a hot inker there for a long time.
And he's just a really great guy, and he's super easy to work with, and he's very he's a great penciler in his own right. Like, he really draws very, very well. So back in the day, he fixed a lot of my more rookie mistakes. He cleaned up some bad attempts at lighting and fixed some horrible anatomy, and really gave my panels foreground, background, and middle ground in the way that they're supposed to, that I didn't understand at first.
Yeah, his lines are so clean and crisp, and that was my natural style, is very clean and crisp, so I would study his work.
Right. Yeah. You were using old school brush back in the day, right? Even a dip brush?
Yes.
Yeah.
Winsor Newton Series 7 size 2. And then somewhere along the line, Winsor Newton stopped using the same sable because they couldn't hunt them anymore.
Sure.
And then I switched to a Raphael 8404. He's trying there.
Do you still use brush? You use other tools now?
The Divinity cover I did with you was one of my last pieces with brush.
Oh, yeah.
I've moved to digital because of my age, which is sad to say.
I hear you.
I'll be 65 in a couple of months.
Yeah. It's funny getting older and being a creator. Like, I now have several different readers. One's for penciling, one's for inking, and one's for looking at the computer. It just can't.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. I've got like 3 different sets here myself. Yeah.
Yeah.
I know the feeling.
Yeah. It's a transition from, you finally learn how to do the job when you get to your 40s, and then after that it's a downhill slide into not being able to do the job anymore.
About 3 years ago, I made the move to digital. About 4 years ago, I started working with digital, and I decided, well, as long as I'm going to ink in digital, I might as well teach myself how to color too.
Uh-huh.
And then about 3 years ago, 4 years ago, I moved fully to digital. Martin, you're going to have to. Martin.
Yes, I'm trying so hard.
Yeah, well, you're going to have to mute when you're talking.
Oh, sorry.
Yeah, you might hit the mute when you do a lot of typing. See if that works.
Yeah, so I'm 100% digital now.
Right.
And I mean, there's good and bad things about it. Yes, I don't have the physical artwork and some stuff like that, but I go a lot faster.
Right. Yeah, that's what everyone says. Yeah.
And I can blow it up and push it down, and and I have found or made a brush that imitates a real brush really close.
Yeah, I've been resistant to the shift. I'm such a dinosaur. And I'm very analog. I like paper. I like penciling and inking on paper still. So I know that logistically it makes more sense to just go straight digital, but I'm not. It's not like we ever get into comics for the money, right? So I like having the pages.
Yeah.
Yeah. I didn't have much of a choice because I developed a very, very faint tremor in my hand. And I can fix that with the digital by just turning the streamline up. So.
Oh, smart. That is.
It is what it is.
Right.
Age sucks.
It does. It's not the best. So, John, are you?
I'm still working with.
I know. I see that. I'm very impressed, Rob.
So how did you get hooked up with Malibu then?
Yeah, go ahead.
Oh, I was working on Wonder Man, and then I forget who called me and asked if I wanted to do stuff. I think Derek might have given someone my name. Or Wonder Man was popular. Yeah, Wonder Man was popular enough at the time that someone reached out at me in Malibu and asked me if I wanted to co-create Solitaire, and I said, yeah. I mean, I was finishing up. I done with Wonder Man. I did a couple Spider-Mans, and so I think it just sort of presented itself at the right time. So it was just the obvious and the best choice. And I really liked doing work in Solitaire. I liked working at Malibu. I'm sorry that it didn't last longer and didn't have a wider reach. But I guess at the time I guess they just weren't getting the numbers out for the quality they were making. So, but it just didn't happen.
It was a fun company to work with, and they treated everybody very, very well. As a female creator coming in, they didn't care about my gender.
Right.
As long as I turn out the work and make the deadlines, that's it. That's all they care about.
Right.
But they were a fun company, and I like the way that they let you.
Oh, Barbara's.
Yep, she's glitching a little.
Yeah. It's funny, these I've done a bunch of these podcasts, and it's played this game. It's the internet is such a funny thing because it makes all this possible, but then it also makes it impossible at the same time.
Your own path there. Was Solitaire?
So Solitaire was the costume was all my design. They brought the idea to me originally of a kid whose dad was a criminal and he was fighting him incognito. So I designed all the outfits, the costume, the fighting style, how the stuff worked, and all the other characters. So it was mostly everything the world looked like was mine. Hang on just 1 second. Still on, guys. Yeah. All right.
I know. I can tell you, I still have my polybag #1 and open #1.
That's great. So, John, were you working at a comic book store back then? Are you?
I was. So I'm not that much younger than you guys. I've got glasses too. I've got contacts in right now, so it's a little bit bleeding. I'm doing the same thing that you guys were mentioning. You know, I'll take the phone and I have to turn on the flashlight to like read small print. Now my 18-year-old thinks it's hilarious. Me,
right.
Not so much. But yeah, I was working in comic book stores starting like 91 when I graduated high school through my college years. So we closed down in May of 96 because I was going to be graduating. They didn't trust anybody else to run the store. And then I went off and got like a real job in teaching, and I've been in higher ed for 27 years now. But I started self-publishing at the end of the 90s. I met Roland through pen paling back in
I love Roland.
The early 90s. Yeah, me too. And then he brought me back in for Silverline 3.0. And then I've been a little bit on hiatus, but I'm trying to get back into the swing of things now. So I do everything but draw.
Okay, fun. Yeah, the 90s was an interesting place to experience comics. There was a lot of, really creative things happening, and they was a lot of fun. And so I don't know what making comic books is like nowadays, because the Kickstarter that I'm on now has introduced me to an incredible world of new creators and a variety of different genres that are being very well made.
Indeed.
Yeah, you look at previews, and there's an awful lot of books in there that back in the early days in the 80s and 90s, there weren't nearly as many books in previews and in Diamond as there are now.
Yeah,
it's crazy how things have expanded, and the number of books that are in there.
It's kind of the closest. It's probably the closest thing we'll get to like the 80s black and white explosion with all the indies, because it was possible. The same thing now with the Kickstarters and GoFundMes.
Yeah, that's an excellent parallel, because it does seem like there's been this boom, almost a renaissance and stuff.
Excuse me for popping out, folks.
It's all right.
I said, I'm on a farm in Iowa, so if I lose connection, I'm sorry.
That's fine. We get it.
Yeah, so I might drop out for a minute because I'm going to see if logging out and coming back in is going to help. Sorry about that. So you guys keep chatting.
Are you sure you won't log everybody out?
We'll see. The adventures of international conversation.
But yeah, for some strange reason, I cannot get the screen to give me the option to share.
Yeah, the screen has popped up where we're small and it's big, but we can't seem to get the
awesome artwork of Jeff's plus his Kickstarter stuff on there too. So darn it.
Let me try something.
John, did you have some questions?
Oh wow. Yeah. Oh boy. It's been a long day, so I'm not even like wording right now. Well, you had mentioned you were in Italy. So one of the questions that I did ask that I think I didn't have my microphone on for at the time, are you living there now? Or did you relocate, or are you on vacay?
No, just don't want. So my friend Derek is having a birthday, and so he loves Florence. And so he asked me if I wanted to come with him. And I, of course, said yeah. So we came to Florence, and then we snuck in a con in Stockholm for 4 or 5 days, and then just got back the other day. So we're bookending our Stockholm trip with some Florence vacation stuff, and then I'll be heading back to Oregon I guess on Monday. So yeah, just sort of, I'm trying to get some work done, trying to keep the Kickstarter going, and also trying to eat as much Italian dessert as I can squeeze in my face. So it's been a good trip.
Very cool. I've got the not so authentic pizza here, from the oven.
It's I'm going to tell you, it's different over here. It's everything tastes better. There's no doubt about it.
So if I could ask a question, was there ever a project that you were slated to do and you were uber excited about it, but for whatever reason, it fell for you.
Yeah, I was just actually, so when I was in Sweden, I met a guy named Magnus, who is a big Magnus Robot fan, a robot fighter fan from the Valiant days.
Yeah.
And I got to tell, and he knew everything there was to know about Magnus Robot Fighter, except that he didn't. There was going to be a new Magnus Robot Fighter done by Keith Giffen and myself at Valiant back in the day when I was doing those covers. I did a bunch of armor covers, and I did an issue of Solar, and I did some armor stuff, and so. The job that I was actually, those were temporary. The job that I was actually working towards and designing was a brand new Magnus Robot Fighter with Keith Giffen. He was going to write it and do the layouts that, his style. And then the company went under. So it just never happened. So I think that's the most disappointing almost that I ever had, because it was going to be everything I love. It was going to be Kung Fu and martial arts and science fiction and monsters, and it was going to be great, but it just didn't go.
I'm sorry to hear that. Would have been awesome. That would have been very cool.
Yeah, it would have been a game changer for sure. And then I was supposed to do the Fantastic Four. I did a few issues of the Fantastic Four, and I was supposed to be the next guy after Carlos Pacheco. And then the company went through a shakeup, and the editor who hired me got let go, and the new editor wanted someone else. So that is actually why I went to CrossGen. Well, there you go.
Hey, there we are.
Oh, sorry about that. Yeah.
All right, fun. So yeah, that's yeah. You can see how much work Terry Austin was doing in there. Definitely fixed all of that stuff. Yeah, but that was other than that, my career has been pretty great. The really cool projects have come up when I needed them, and I've been able to pick and choose. There's another great one. That's all Barb for that.
It brings something different to the table when you see it in black and white.
Yeah.
Wow.
Well, yeah, all that splatter on the bricks is amazing. Yeah.
Thank
Yep,
you.
fun character.
Yeah, there's a little bit of Bernie Wrightson influence up there too.
Sure. Yeah, that looks great. I remember that cover. That was fun. It was funny to have that cover in the black plastic because the trading cards were inside.
Yeah.
I have those.
Yeah. Yeah, those were really, really cool. Yeah, Malibu did a great job of promoting and really making the books fun and interesting and in a way collectible before the crazy variant covers that we're seeing nowadays.
The thing that I did like with the your version with your polybag #1 is that they did use your art on it. It was not as clean, obviously, as the printed piece, but at least we were able to see the character on the cover, which was really, really cool.
Yeah, all those covers they wound up using them together, but all those covers I was doing, my dream was to do 22 issues in a row and then have every cover actually be a single shot of an additional story that you would be able to put together and get an extra issue.
That's a great idea. Yeah.
Yeah.
So sorry. So say that one more time.
Yeah. So if you have all the covers from the first one where he jumps down, where he lands, and he shoots, and then I don't know if you have the third one or not. He kicks the guy on the motorcycle. They're all single images from a long action story, a long fight scene that would have been an extra issue if you collected all 22. So you would have got a bonus issue just by lining up the covers. And I didn't tell anyone I was doing. Yeah, I didn't tell anyone I was doing it at the time because I didn't know if I could pull it off, and also I didn't want anyone messing with it. So I sort of snuck in this concept. And at some point around issue 6, somebody figured it out and they decided to make those, and the book was ending. So they made it the first 6 pages of the final issue. So I think the final issue started would have started on page 7. So didn't quite work out, but it was a cool idea.
Mm-hmm. Fascinating. All right. So, is there anything in particular you want to point out, Barb, of Jeff's work? Do you want to go to his early days with like Amazing
No,
Spider-Man?
other than the fact that I absolutely loved working with him, no.
Yeah, you know what's funny, Barbara, is so I've been inking myself on this Kickstarter thing, and I realized that my pencils can be a little vague sometimes. I've had to learn how to be a little more decisive, so I apologize for any stuff that was too loose back in the day.
Hmm. So here's a question for you. So when you were working for Marvel, were you working in their house style, or were you working just in your own style, or was it a mix of both? What was kind of going on there?
Yeah, I mean, I don't know if I have I would never describe myself as a house style, though I think that I fit right in just because I love Marvel Comics and I've been studying them for so long. So I think it was definitely part of the continuum of Marvel in DC. I think I bounced back and forth. So I think that I had a little bit more of the sedate, almost quiet medium shot of DC and the How to Draw Comics the Marvel way, all in my stuff. As you can see there, I do pick higher and lower angles, but then also will draw the boring 2 dudes just sitting at a table thing straight on.
Right. So part of the reason why I asked that question is because I did a quick cursory review of your stuff before we jumped on air, and your Marvel stuff seemed to be very Marvel, but then when you moved to Solitaire, it looks like you were trying to remove the Marvelness out of it. I don't know, is that true or not?
Well, no, I wasn't trying to remove the Marvelness out of it. It is interesting that you would mention that because I wanted to, especially on issue 2, I was experimenting with point of view, and so I tended to show much. I wanted to show Solitaire almost as though it was someone was filming him, without him knowing. Like, so I wanted it to be a little bit more of a guerrilla kind of approach to storytelling. So I tended to pick much wider shots and further away shots, almost as though he was being captured by news footage. And then I was experimenting with showing more and having it be almost a documentary, and then cutting in close for some stuff, which is one of those hoity-toity, artsy-fartsy things that I don't know if it really worked or not, but I was in my 20s. I was trying to figure out how to tell a story and why to tell a story, and what shots I think you use really. I think the storytelling defines the character in a way too. So I thought that Solitaire he didn't really know himself, and so he was kind of a walking bruise. And I showed him from his disassociation emotionally, and him. I wanted the undercurrents of him being separate from everyone else. So those were my thoughts and my process. Did it make for perhaps a less engaged comic book? Probably. But yeah, so it's interesting that you would think of that as me not doing the Marvel style, which is true. But that would have been my reasons were much more self-indulgent. Sure,
but I would suggest that Solitaire is starting to look a little more slick than Marvel. So Marvel is very bombastic, but Solitaire is a little bit more toned down.
Yeah, in a way.
It's also slicker. At least that's what I picked up. I was like, oh, this is interesting. And the other thing, then looking at some of your other stuff following, it also seemed like a transition comic into other styles.
It definitely was. So one of the things that as you all know, drawing comics is is how you draw. That's a major part of it. But I think a more important part is what you decide to draw. And so that ongoing exploration, I think, went down a certain path with Solitaire. And so I've been, weaving all over trying to figure out the perfect combination of things to make my style my style. And so I think it was definitely a departure from what I had been doing. And it was a stepping stone into other stuff. Like, I think I really kind of hit my stride on Way of the Rat at CrossGen. That was where I figured how to balance the wider, more documentary, this is where this thing is happening, drawing, with the closer, tighter, this is who it's happening to, mathematics of what to draw and why to draw it.
Right. So I was going to ask, so we were talking about inking earlier, and so we're talking about stylistic changes over time as well. So picking up the changes that are happening, how much of the changes you changing your approach to the pencils itself, and how much of the style is changing because of the inker who inks you?
Well, as I was saying before, and I apologize to Barb for this, like when I was growing up, I in my mind, a pencil page, the frame of reference I had was a John Buscema Conan set of pages that I had seen. And so those are pretty loose, right? And so in my estimation, my job as the penciler was mostly to pick the shot, give the figure, and indicate a bunch of stuff. And so I left a lot up to my inkers back in the day. And so it really, it depended if someone was willing to add their own personality into the pages, or if they were on a tighter deadline, then they wouldn't. So I think that my style actually was very malleable, and I don't think really came through at all until I had a longer run, like I said, on Way of the Rat, where I got to pick my inker, Tom Ryder, and we got to work side by side, figuring out what stuff was supposed to look like. And we had a great colorist who basically really tied it all together. So yeah, it's been, now that I ink myself more for, convenient financial plus also we scan stuff in. I think it's a much better representation of what I always would hope the stuff would look like, but wasn't able to put on the page.
Right. So is the comic called Born Home? Was that something you worked on?
I did. So Born Home was I think it's 4 issues of, maybe it's 5, of a science fiction thing I did, Paul Tubin, when I first moved to Oregon. And that's my first me inking myself project.
Okay. So that was, because it's a very, it struck me as very different than your other work.
Right.
And it also seems very Euro.
Oh, yeah. Well, because I was doing a science fiction story and I wanted it to be different, and I was trying. So once again, I'd been that was the first job I'd done in comics after I'd been in animation for a really long time. So the way I approach storytelling is totally different now. After doing storyboards for 10 years, it really affects the way you design a page and lay out a scene. So Born Home was the first project where the effects of animation, I think, you can see in my work.
Yeah, it's fantastic.
Thank you.
So you know. Yeah,
oh,
absolutely.
Thanks.
Yeah. Now this big Barda piece, is this inked by you or someone else?
Oh, that's inked by me.
That's inked by you. Okay, so this would be a tighter inking approach.
Yeah.
Whereas your Born Home is a much looser approach.
Yeah. I was trying to make it look. Born Home takes place on a defunct, and almost derelict world of roller coasters and amusement parks and whatnot. And so I wanted to make it look gritty and dirty and broken down. But like when I ink a pinup, which I do a lot of, like commission pieces, I tend to use microns, and I tend to be a little bit sharper and cleaner. Yeah, Kirby dots. Everyone loves Kirby dots.
So right. Did you pencil and ink this piece as well?
I did, yes.
A little bit of a Mucha influence.
Oh yeah, absolutely. I think every artist from my generation has a little bit of a Mucha influence.
All right. Did Barb come back, or is she?
I think probably the internet in Iowa is not the best.
Yeah, her phone
she's
dropped
out in the
out.
middle of the country. Yeah, it's probably a little rough.
All right. So okay. So John or Rob, do you have any?
Well, unfortunately, I've had my back turned, so I haven't seen all the artwork. But what I have seen is, the Kirby dots are great here. I'm a huge Kirby fan. He's a big influence on me, so I use those whenever I can. I actually have a digital brush that will put in Kirby dots, which is
I love that.
It's a really cool effect that you can do. But
is that Procreate?
I use I have two different programs. I use Affinity Photo or Photoshop, either one of those.
All right.
And I can use the brushes in those. Mostly Photoshop because I know it really well.
Right.
But I don't do much inking because until I get practiced at it, it takes longer for me to ink digitally than it does.
Oh, absolutely.
My pens. It's a practice thing, which I don't have.
Mm-hmm.
I don't have the skill set yet, but I can see how it would speed things up. But so far, it just slows everything down. I want to get things done.
Yeah, I have really leaned into penciling and then separately inking because I can't finishing my own stuff. It's too aggravating for me. It's too stressful. So I have to do everything clean as though we're penciling it for someone else, and then go back and ink it myself. Yeah. So it takes me way longer to do both, but I do enjoy the process, and actually learning how to ink has made me a better penciler because I'm clearer about my communication.
Well, when you were talking about inking earlier, a phrase came to me from an artist that I had talked to before I got into the industry, and he says, if you're going to draw a comics kid, you be sure to draw it so that the inker doesn't screw it up.
Right.
So, yeah, which can happen. Unfortunately, in your case, you had one of the better inkers out there, Barb Kalberg, working on your stuff.
Oh yeah,
so
Barb's great.
She did a lot more finishing for you than and then Terry Austin as well. So you got very lucky right off the bat.
I've been incredibly lucky. Honestly,
Yes.
I've had some of the best in the business. I had Barbara, I had Terry Austin, I had Dan Panosian. I've been it's been crazy. Scott Collins inked me on a few things. It's nuts. My inker on CrossGen, Way the Rat, Tom Ryder is amazing. So yeah, I've been very, very lucky. And I've had less than great experiences, who I won't mention. But listen, deadlines suck, and I am notorious for taking days that don't belong to me in the process, so to speak.
That's very tactful.
Yeah. So, when I'm penciling my own stuff, I start out real loose. I just finished knocking in this page here, and I will go back probably and spend another hour or 2 hours on it, tightening up a little bit, and then tightening it up completely with the inks.
Right.
But so yeah, that's my working process. But when I was actually penciling for someone else to ink, I would try to be really tight with what I wanted, because that stayed with me. Don't leave any room for the inker to screw it up. So,
well, unless you're John Buscema and you have someone like Tom Palmer, and then you can leave as much room as you want.
Or Alfredo Alcala on his Conan work. Oh my word! If you saw the pencils, there's hardly anything there, and then Alcala comes in and just builds this lush world in ink. Just incredible
amazing
stuff.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, so long as the agreement is there between the two fellows as to who's doing what.
Well, yeah.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Well, that's why there's a different word for finisher and embellisher and inker, and
Right. Yeah. Yeah. So this is Divinity, folks. If you haven't seen this before, this is fantastic. And look at how crisp Barb makes those pencils look.
Oh yeah.
So she snapped that out of the park, as did the drawing by Jeff. And this is Barb's pride and joy, her comic Divinity, which you can get from Silverline. So yeah,
it's a great comic.
Yeah.
Yes. Yeah.
Now, you mentioned the Dragon Prince earlier,
Yeah.
and this ended up becoming an Image book. So how many issues did this end up running for?
I believe that was also 4 issues. And Lee
4
Motor
issues.
did the interiors. I did the covers, and Ron Mars and I came up with the concept together, and Ron wrote it. And so I designed the characters, and then I was supposed to draw it for Dark Horse, but at the time I got swept into animation, and I wasn't able to do both things. And so turned over the drawing job to Lee Motor, and he did an amazing job. It's a really fun comic. And then I went into doing backgrounds on Justice League Unlimited. So,
Wow.
Can I ask 2 questions?
of course,
Cool. Awesome. Okay. So for first one, going back to Wonder Man, Splice. Loved
Yeah.
Splice.
Yeah,
Anything
I would-
background wise that you could tell me about that character? Because he was so cool. I thought he was going to be like the next big thing,
Well,
and he was fun and awesome and great visuals.
So Splice is actually designed by my friend Steve Jones, who is also a comic book artist. We had a studio together for a long time. So Steve is he was doing backgrounds for me at the time on Wonder Man, and so he designed the character with the atypical cross belt that was very, very cool. And it was and then so it's really his design with my tweaks. And I love that character too. And I was hoping, I don't know if the Wonder Man TV show is still going to happen or not. I know that it might be on hiatus, or it might be defunct now thanks to timing, I guess.
Yeah, and the actor strike. Yeah.
Yeah, but my hope was that we would see Splice in there. But I have no idea if that's ever going to happen now. Yeah, yeah, he's a great fun character. You know what's funny about him is that they don't cut film anymore, so he's a very analog character. Right now, it's all digital, right? So the idea of splicing film, it's like a ringtone on a phone, or that sound that your camera makes when it takes a picture. Like, it's one of those remnants that doesn't exist anymore. So it'd be
Or like
interesting
when
to
the
see.
kids think that the button that they press to save something, when you show them a
Right.
floppy disk, they're like, "Oh, you 3D printed that little button?" It's like, no, that button was based on the other thing. Yeah.
Right. Or how, I don't know about the newest generation, but people I know still do this for rolling down the window, and no one has crankshafts anymore. Right.
Mm-hmm. Totally. Second question. So the other 2 gentlemen here are artists along with you. I'm a writer.
Mm-hmm.
So I've been lucky. I've been able to work with a bunch of people over the years of self-publishing and working through stuff for Silverline. When I write, I usually give my artists like a page-by-page, panel-by-panel breakdown. I kind of see the story in my head, and I kind of take screen caps, almost kind of like what you would do with storyboard. And that's kind of what I like write out. As an artist, what do you like getting from a writer? What kind of style do you best work with, getting from the writer to be able to do your best work to draw the pencil page?
So it really depends on the relationship that I have with the writer. When I was working on, some of my favorite stuff to have ever worked on was with Ron Mars on Green Lantern. And the way Ron would write a script for me is that he would give me a page. So he would write almost like, here's a paragraph or 2 for what's happening on the page. But then he would also include an idea of the dialogue. This is what they're going to be talking about. This is what they're probably going to be saying. So that I know what the beats are. And then I would synthesize that and draw the page, and then Ron would go in and then write afterwards. So it was a little bit more information than the old school Marvel way, which was very plot, very, very loose. When I first started doing Wonder Man, it was very, you didn't know what people were going to be saying. You just had the idea of what's going on. So you do a lot of writing on your own. So like you have an idea, they're saying this, this is kind of where this conversation is going. And the writer will come in and add and do his version of all of that. And then when I was working on Way of the Rat with Chuck Dixon, Chuck would write a panel by panel, very detailed plot with the dialogue pretty much fully formed until we came to a fight scene. And then he would have the beginning of the fight scene and say that they're going to be talking about this, and it's to begin here and in here. And then he would just let me choreograph the movement of that fight scene and that action sequence. And then
I've done that too. That's why I'm smiling. Okay, cool.
Yeah. So I think because at one point he started choreographing the fight scene stuff, and he goes like, "This is dumb of me to do, isn't it?" I'm like, I'm just going to change it all. So yeah, I mean, you can write it if you want, but I'm not using any of that.
Yeah, early on with giving the page by page, panel by panel breakdowns, and like you said, it's also about knowing the artist. I've told the artist usually this is what I see in my head.
Right
now, you take it and make it real. Put it on the page. If you could combine 2 panels into one, go for it. I also learned early I don't like giving full dialogue ahead of time, because some of the early pages I got in, the dialogue wouldn't have flowed correctly because they didn't put the characters in the right places. So I do go in and script when I do lettering, after the art comes back in. I love the collaborative process. It's one of my favorite things about comics.
Yeah, me too. And working with James Robinson on the Rogue's Kingdom book has been so. James writes a pretty tight script. I think James has done a ton of TV over the last decade or so, and so I think they're almost screenplay-ish. Is like they're very easy to read, and when you read them, you can picture a movie in your head. And so the only time I've ever really changed anything that James has written is that I will add panels for dialogue beats, so because coming from storyboards, I'm so used to breaking down facial expressions to each moment,
right?
That I tend to add extra shifts in expression that I think a lot of comic book people don't, just because it does in comics. You don't need it in the same way, but coming from animation, it's become a bit of a habit.
Yeah, it depends on how subtle you want to be, whether you want to be, because as one writer once said, the action all happens in the gutters between the panels. So
it does.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I do think that Steve Dillon once said the most important thing on a page is where the word balloon is pointing to. So
yes,
and I definitely agree with that, because it's that's what sells the image. But every once in a while, I think the idea of a more cinematic pacing gets in my head, and I try and do that. But time and space are a different kind of real estate on the page as opposed to the screen.
Right.
So now, is this image that we're looking at? Is this from your Rogue's Kingdom comic?
It's Rogue's Kingdom, and this is the page 6-7 spread where we are introduced to the main city where stuff takes place, called Lumpland, and it's a port city that's been around for 1,000 years. And so we have confluence of different architectural types and styles. So this is the character called the Terror, and she is involved in sort of an ongoing street tournament.
All right, wonderful. So you penciled and inked all of this yourself?
I did, and it was colored by Brennan Wagner. And he, so one of the things that, since I've been involved in the story since the very, very beginning, and James is a fantastic collaborator. He lets me pretty much do whatever I want when it comes to telling the story. And I wanted this scene. So this is the time of day actually matters quite a bit, because this is the opening issue. This is the opening part of the series. And so I wanted the sun to be going down on the city, so that the as this day ends, the new paradigm begins. And so all I did was tell Brennan that I wanted it to be that magic golden hour, and this is what he gave me. I'm like, wow. So
literally the golden hour.
It really, and he took it. Yeah, it's perfect, because it is that everything's kind of on fire, which is a little bit of foreshadowing, and it really makes the purples and the blues of the Terror pop. And I think it just really pulls you into the emotional context of the story, which is his colors are fantastic at that.
Yeah, the imagery, especially that first panel there, the big large panel, reminds me of pictures that I've seen of, interestingly enough, cities in Italy and Europe and Greece, that are kind of built on hillsides like that. Was that kind of what the inspiration for this was? Because it's very reminiscent of that, though the architecture is different.
Well,
from what you
so
would see in those pictures.
When James and I first started putting this book together, we wound up we just were batting it around for a long time, and we settled on doing a fantasy swords and sorcery story. And the all the swords and sorcery, all the fantasy stuff tends to be, the Dark Ages and cold, dank England, and I didn't want to do that. So I picked as a focal point France in the 17th century. So I wanted to mix it more of Three Musketeers meets Lord of the Rings. So there's a lot of a lot of European, a lot of Parisian, a lot of almost Corsican stuff in there. So
yeah, I could see that. I could see that it has that European influence. Yeah.
So out of curiosity, how much research would you do for something like this? Would you just take 2 or 3 images and say, okay, now I'm going to make it up from here, or would you get copious amounts of data?
My research is obsessive. So I mean, it was the same when I did Way of the Rat. Like, I have been doing Kung Fu since I was a kid, so I already had a baseline of knowledge. But if you look at Way of the Rat, everything means something. There's the sculptures mean something, the background, the way the doors are built means something. And the same is true in this. So that's the palace where the king and the princess live. And I have designed the city I have maps. I know how long it takes to get from one place to another in the city. So I know I know how to use those weapons. I'm not necessarily very good with them, but generally speaking, everything has some historical point of reference that I have fancied up, fantasized up. So yeah, I would say too much research almost.
Yeah, that's good to do though. It flows off the end of your pencil when you do that though, right?
It does.
Because you've got it. It's in here already. So,
I think for it to come out of your hand, you have to put it in your brain. So
yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Yeah. So a couple key points that you have brought up is one, do your research. Other artists have said, draw what you see, not what you know. So get going, get your reference.
Right.
The other aspect of it is if you're talking with your writer, get a good relationship with them and figure out how you guys work together in tandem. And then the other thing, this is something for writers that you mentioned here, time of day is important. Please tell us the time of day as an artist, because we have no clue. If you don't tell it to us, we're like, I don't know what to do here. Am I supposed to make this a somber thing, or is it supposed to be happy? Right. Is it supposed to be time of day?
Give us things to work with. Yeah,
especially if I'm a colorist. If I'm coloring something,
especially if it's important to the story.
Yeah.
Helping to tell the story, as you did in this case with that golden hour. The sun is setting, and so that it's setting on this particular aspect of the story, but something new is going to rise with the coming dawn. So yeah. Very good.
Well, I developed the technique of not, because I'm a black and white guy, and I've been working in black and white, pencils and inks, my whole career. And so my understanding of color is theoretical at best and emotional. And so when I was working with Chris Garcia on Way of the Rat, who is a brilliant colorist, that we developed sort of a shorthand language where I would say, this scene it's cold. This is that moment where he's about to give up hope. And so Chris would turn that into a color schematic, or I'd say this is the moment right before shit gets real. And so he would use sort of the narrative context to help him with his colors. But so that was a shorthand that I developed with Chris, and that's
cool.
just always how I've learned to think about color.
Mm-hmm.
So it's
Yeah,
just
like
another note. It's just another note in the symphony you're trying to do with telling the story. Yeah.
Right.
Okay, so maybe 2 or 3 questions here. Let's see. What's
Sure.
the longest book you've ever done a run on?
I think my runs on Wonder Man and on Way of the Rat are comparable, 24, 25 issues.
All right. So, okay. Yeah. And the next question is, what was the funnest project that you ever worked on, comic-wise, not animation, in the comics?
Right. So probably the most fun I think I ever had was when I did a few issues of Spider-Man way back in the 90s. And so I've always loved that character. So that just getting to do that was a dream come true. But it was also a really great excuse to move to New York for a month and a half. So I stayed in a little apartment that my friend had back in the day. And I worked in New York working on Spider-Man and wandering around back in the day, I had to pull up, just a camera, taking pictures of everything, and using that as reference and just living there to try and get a feel for it. But, and I don't think I did capture New York well at all, but when I got to New York for the first time and I saw all the water towers and I saw how close the buildings were together, swinging finally made sense to me. I'm like, oh, this is perfect. Obviously this is the best way to get around.
That's hilarious. There was a issue of Spider-Man that came out when I was in junior high. So we're talking 87, 83 to 87. And it was Spidey on top of a train. And it said, "When cometh the commuter?" And Spidey found himself out in the suburbs. And I'm a suburban kid. So born in Chicago, been out in the suburbs since 6 months old. And so like Spidey trying to find a tree to swing from to another one, it was hilarious. It was totally funny. So it's the exact flip of what you had just said, where it's kind of cool that you got to see how it actually would play out in real life.
Right, because I'm a suburban kid too, right? And so when I
Where'd you grow
up? So I was born in California and grew up mostly in California. We moved around a little bit, but I'm kind of I was born in Southern California, but I'm a Bay Area guy. Cool. So San Francisco, Berkeley. Yeah. But even in San Francisco, the buildings are not the same. Like it's just those long canyons that there are in New York. So, yeah.
Martin, I think I hijacked your questions. I apologize.
Nope. Those were the two. It was the longest running comic, and what was the most fun.
Yeah.
And now, if you were to throw out some tips to up and comers, what would be like three basic things that you would tell them to do?
So I do a lot of I one of the things I like about being back in comics is I've been able the last few years been able to go to more shows and hang out with comic book people more, which is great because in animation you work in an office and you work crazy long hours and you don't really do shows. It's not the same thing. So what I've been saying a lot lately is that you have to because I get that's this question a lot is like what's the most important thing to being a comic book artist? And the answer is be able to sit still for 10 hours in a day and concentrate on something, right? I knew you like that, Rob.
Yeah, I do. It was 12 and 15 hours a day for me back in the day.
Right. So you have to learn how to concentrate and be focused for a very long time and sit still, but still maintain, like get up, stretch. You got to maintain a healthy body to do it. And the other thing is, so learn how to sit and be still and concentrate. And the other thing is draw things that you don't want to draw, like draw cars, draw lampshades, draw all the boring stuff to learn how to make it look real. And then you get like the Shazam piece. Then you can build, a bizarre machine that, does whatever you think it does, right?
Comic books aren't just pinups. You're going to have to show people talking to each other and they can't all be fighting out in the middle of the street in New York City. They might be in all sorts of different places. You have to be able to draw all sorts of things. And you're not just doing just pinups.
Right.
I mean, contrary to what some artists think, but yeah,
Setting makes
where
a
you
difference.
where you do a pinup and then you got all these little tiny frames to do all the exposition stuff, and that's just backwards. You need to have room for the word balloons to fit in.
Absolutely.
But,
Well, and also
yeah.
a character has to exist in a real world. If you
Yeah.
can't draw, sure, drawing Superman lifting a tank is cool, but if that tank is not believable, then Superman lifting it doesn't make any sense. It doesn't matter. So, learning how to draw the non-exciting stuff that makes stuff believable is key. And then also, I think, once again, what you draw is more important than how you draw it. Like learning how to choose what angle you're using, why you're doing it. So, learning the craft of storytelling.
Yeah.
So I think that is, because I mean, if you can draw a believable face, a believable person, but you do it in such a way that makes the reader feel a connection to that person, whether it's a beautifully rendered face or a happy face, that's the connection is the important thing. And so that is what you choose to draw more than how you draw it.
Mm-hmm. So,
yep, is that 3? That was 3, right?
To touch on this piece here, this is, in my mind, this is radically different than a lot of your stuff. So how did you get here?
So I got there by, this was for a pitch a friend of mine and I put together at DC. And also I just love Shazam. So I've been doing, after I got into animation doing backgrounds on Justice League Unlimited. And then I moved from backgrounds into character design. And so I did a lot of animation character designs, turns and straight up designs. And so you learn to be a little more economical with your shapes and your lines.
Right.
And so
this
is after I've been in animation for a while, me taking a stab at, what would it look like if I was going to do an animated Shazam?
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, that would, I could see that.
Now, if I was to suggest this is almost Tothian, would you agree with that?
Oh, yeah. I mean, it's hard to draw any of those old characters, or be in animation without being inspired by Toth.
Right. Yeah. It's to be frank, I love this piece. I think it's fantastic.
Oh, thank you. Yeah,
I like it too.
I even colored that one.
Wow.
Really?
Yeah,
I was about to compliment the coloring. So yeah, very nicely done.
Thanks.
And again, very European of you, and since you're in Italy.
Oh, right.
How apropos. I don't know if you were looking at Eurocomics when you did this or not, but it has that feel. So,
thanks.
Yeah. All right. So, well, we've had a wonderful time here, Jeff. We've kind of hit the top of the hour, a little bit past. So let's promote your Kickstarter once more, and let people know what is going on with this. Tell us the full details of what this project is and what is going on with that.
So Kickstarter, the Kickstarter thing, the campaign is, I think I have 3 days left. So I would suggest anyone who wants to get on the ground floor of what is hopefully going to be a 100-issue epic long tale of James and I have the first story arc is five issues, and then we already have the second story arc planned, and then we have the third one planned. We have and it's Rogues Kingdom, so it's many rogues and it's a big kingdom, and we have lots of great stuff in the works. We have dragons, and we have centaur battles, and we have wizard wars, and we have our Zorro character Terror there, and we have we have all the things you could ever hope for in a fantasy epic, and really fun, heartfelt characters. James is an amazing writer, and he has created a very, very deep world that I get to play in and draw. So we have 3 days left of the Kickstarter. So Rogues Kingdom, it's I'm sure you guys will put the link up. Go and get it right now. We have the first issue. There's a deluxe version, and we have an incredible array of variant covers by Zach Howard, Ryan Sook, Vernon Wagner did one, and Dave Johnson is doing a cover. So we have great variant covers, which we'll be collecting in a bonus PDF for everybody, and then we're going to have those as digital posters. In the back of the book, James has actually written prose short stories. So you'll read the comic, and then you get extra short stories, which I've done little illustrations for. He's going to be writing a letters page. And the conceit of the letters page is like, yes, we'll have people write in letters, but also it's going to be the city's newspaper. So there'll be articles and stories about what's happening in the city at the time the stories are taking place, as though it were an actual newspaper of the city. So it's a completely immersive experience.
You're having fun with this.
Oh, yeah, it's great.
Sounds like you. So, yeah, that should draw people in, because when you're having fun, it shows, and people, I mean, what we've seen of this so far is just fantastic.
Oh, thank you.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, run to Kickstarter, get it, because you're almost out of time. We're fully funded, so it's happening. The more the people we get now, the easier the next issue is for us to do. But the next issue is also pretty much done. First issue's finished. Second issue is almost finished. We just have it lettered and colored. And then I've already laid out the third issue. So the goal is to just do one, get it out there, and have the next one pretty much on deck.
So none of this stuff it's not vaporware. It's not in your imagination at this point. You actually have it done, and once the Kickstarter's over with, you'll be able to put it together and send it out. So it's a lot of the way Silverline works too. That way, people who are giving you their money aren't waiting years to get what. It's going
to be pretty fast.
Yeah,
you're gonna,
which is
once
very,
the campaign
very
is
good.
done,
that's the only way to do it.
Yeah, we're gonna finish that. We're gonna put the bells and whistles on and send it to the printer, and we should have those back pretty quick. And so my goal is to, after you've gotten the first issue in the mail and hopefully loved it, that's when we'll start the next Kickstarter. So
there you go.
So that everyone can, it's not going to be a monthly. We would love to get as close to a monthly process as possible. So, but as you know, putting together a book is a time-consuming. It's time-consuming.
Yeah.
But our goal is to give everybody, get everyone their fix.
Very good. Very good. Excellent.
All right, people. So that's Rogue's Kingdom by Jeff Johnson and Mr. Robinson, the writer. James Robinson. It's a fantastic looking piece. It looks like it's got lots of exciting stuff in it. So So thank you for taking us down a trip in your history and where you came from and what you're doing. It's always exciting to hear from creators, and this is absolutely wonderful. And so just a reminder to everyone else that we are Silverline and we have our own books as well. There's Twilight Grim, K-List, Divinity, Trumps, Wolf Hunter, Sniper, and
more
Rook.
stuff coming.
And more stuff coming in. They are fantastic books, so do look us up. All right. And as we always say at the end of our shows, make mine
Silverline.
Silverline.
Excellent. Thanks, guys.
Oh, it's been a
Thanks
pleasure
for coming.
Thank you so much.
Well, you know what actually helps, folks? If I actually hit the show thing when you
actually hit the show end.
All right.
There we go.
Hey, everybody.
Bye.
My name is Ross Ritchie from Boom Studios, and make mine Silverline.